Hi everyone, and welcome to my January 2019 interview series with women leaders. And I'm so excited today. We're kicking off the new year with a really awesome, incredible woman. So I'm here today with Crystal Bergfield. Crystal is a badass humanitarian who is changing the way that we govern our country.
Yeah. Peace, everyone. Thank you for having me, Emily. Thank you for inviting me into your space. I'm excited to be here and to share with you all today.
Yeah, so what does it mean to be a badass humanitarian for you?
Yeah. Well, it means authenticity to me. As I grew up on a farm, learning about the earth and animals and how to take care of all of them. And then I was in the military for some time and really learned what that looked like to be part of a team and to meet people from across the world, really. We think of the Army as all these folks that live in our continental states, but I met people from Samoa and Trinidad, Tobago, Puerto Rico, all around. And so meeting all those folks and traveling the world, and then studying yoga for some time, really learning what it means to take care of ourselves and to take care of other folks. And through it all, my whole life's journey, I see themes, and I think we all see themes in our lives. So my theme is really being this humanitarian and all of these other sprinklings of leadership and service and boldness, courage that I have, and that has brought me to this space of badassness, of wanting to do the best good always for folks and for myself.
And for human.
Yes.
Right? I think with humanitarian, it's really we're all humans and remembering and like our humanity.
Yes.
And I feel like I think that kind of what you share in all those vast experiences, I feel like probably really brings a well balance of remembering your own humanity, the light and the dark, and when we can see that and know that within ourselves, my experience is it gives that much greater compassion and capacity for seeing that in others and remembering we're all just humans at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I would add too that especially right now, when we have a lot of hatred and even this idea of nationalism where it's all about just our little community or our country, and being a humanitarian in this time really means that I'm willing to speak up for humanity and speaking up for that which we have in us, that humanity within us, that we often forget and that oftentimes we are taught to forget.
Yeah, I think that's a big distinction. We're taught to forget. Yeah. Well, so how are you going about making these changes?
In the world?
Like, what are you doing?
What am I doing?
I feel like we should just
we should just throw it out there, right? So I am running for president in 2020, and I'm running as an independent. I think it's necessary right now when our two parties are fighting and dividing so much in this country. And as a humanitarian, my ultimate goal is to bring peace and unity to our country intelligently. I don't have this lofty idea that we can just be peaceful and everything will be okay. I get that growth takes struggle and that it's uncomfortable to grow, but that's been my life. It's my mindset of growth, and in that, recognizing the power that I hold to bring great change and to bring hope and inspiring people, and my great leadership, that I'm able to say, look, I know that you're so different from these folks over here, but we all have the same basic human needs. We all want to feel safe when we go home at the end of the day. We all just want to enjoy a little bit of peace in our own lives, in our own homes, and we all want that. And so for me, when I look at the systems, and I've studied our systems in this country, when I look at them and I see how unsupportive they are of all of us, really, but certain groups in particular, and different groups in different ways, I really start to study how can we work on these systems so that they do support us, so that we can all feel safe and we can feel secure and loved at the end of the day.
Yeah. And well, first of all, congratulations. And it's super exciting that you are running for president in 2020.
Thank you.
I'm curious, like a really, so an example right now in our government, like as we are filming this, who knows, this will go live next week, our government is in shutdown.
Yeah.
And I guess I'd love to know an example because there is such a divide, and I know even I saw it in myself at the last election where I couldn't even, I had a really challenging time of even seeing how somebody could vote for said person.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't even know how to initiate a conversation with them because I couldn't even begin to understand it. And I really believe to be able to unify and bring that more is you've got to understand where both sides are coming from. So do you see that you are able to do that even while having your own belief or stance? But how, I'm curious.
Yeah, actually, because of my life experience and the people that I've surrounded myself with, I've got friends who are supporters of Trump, supporters of Hillary, people who couldn't stand either of them, so all the way around. And for me, it takes stepping back and seeing the humanity in them, right? Why was somebody voting for Trump? Well, I grew up in rural America, and farmers who have been left behind by our government, unsupported. So an example is that farmers have not been able to set their prices for what they grow in a very long time. And in that, not being able to set the prices, they are now being paid less than minimum wage to produce the food for our country, for everything that we export, and they're starving and they're drowning in this system of agriculture, and they put their whole lives into something. So when I'm able to step back and see them humanity, see their suffering, I can understand that they are just trying to grasp on for anything, anybody that they thought might be able to help them. And I think too that social media has really propelled us into this divide in being able to sell whatever they want to sell, whether it's truth or not. We are being sold things on a daily basis. And
that is so true.
Yeah.
Or people sharing links or news that maybe we don't know the source of it, so it's just perpetuating.
And we want to buy into something. We all want to feel safe, right? So when we're sold something that is being sold to us, when we're buying into what's being sold to us, then we feel safe. Like, okay, this person says that they want to take care of me, so I'm going to grasp onto that because I have nothing else, right? And it's the same thing on both sides. Everybody in our country, with things so unstable, and with politics being so narrowed as to what the scope is of control and what they're willing to address, we just are grasping for something.
What do you think we're grasping for? Also, I just remembered I need to be speaking up.
Oh yeah.
Crystal's doing a great job. As I asked that question, I realized I've been quiet. I lost my microphone jack, so normally we can plug 2 microphones in. So we're doing this no microphone, but I think you should, I'm sure you're able to hear us. But yeah, so what do you think that we're grasping for?
Well, I'll say this. Our systems in this country, they're all interwoven. So we have an education system, we've got our healthcare system, we've got the military, our economy, all of these different systems that are interdependent on one another. So an example of that is how our education system, we send our kids to school every day and expect them to be learning different things, and education is my biggest priority in this country, but I'll get back to that. So when a child comes to school, if they don't have food in their bellies, how do we expect them to be able to learn? If a child isn't, if they're living in poverty and they don't have a parent at home to parent them, the parents both might be working 2 full-time jobs just to pay rent. How do we expect the family unit to survive and to even thrive, and certainly to contribute to our society? Our systems are failing the people in this country. And so what I think is the biggest issue with politics right now is that it has narrowed the scope and said we are just paying attention to the economy, and we've expected politicians to give us where they stand on foreign affairs or the military or a wall, all of these things that don't address the humanity in us. And that's really what my campaign is about, is addressing the humanity in all of us and ensuring that our government, which was set up to support the people, is doing just that.
Yeah, awesome. And I love that education is a big, you said it's your priority. I'd love to hear more about that and kind of why that is your passion so strongly.
Yeah. So I grew up a very curious child, and I grew up on a farm, so I was outside all the time playing and jumping off of things and just exploring the world around me. And when I got into school, the library was my best friend.
Aww.
And I would pick up books, as many books as I could at a time, and just learned as much as I could. So I've always understood the value of education, and I have two parents who are educators, both teachers. So that was ingrained in me from very early on. So knowing the value of education, and also knowing the value of my own journey, that what has brought me to where I am today is my desire to learn and to soak up as much knowledge as I can. And so when I step back outside of myself and observe myself, I see how much knowledge has opened up my world and opened up my view of other people.
Yes, yeah.
And that really is what will propel us forward as a nation. When we have people who are uneducated and unable to critically think about a situation. So, for example, on social media, when we come upon somebody who has a different view than us, the first thing we do is just want to attack, or we want to turn around and run. Yeah. Instead of being able to critically think, to step back and think, why do they have that belief? Why are they thinking this way? And does it affect me? Does it have to take me off kilter? So I really believe that if we could educate our country in all levels, preschool through 100 years old, offering education in different ways, that will really be the cure to where we are, to this divide in our country.
Awesome. I mean, I believe in education so strongly. And so I'm going to switch, go back a little bit to, you're running as an independent.
Yes.
We're currently in a government shutdown. I'd love to hear your take on that and what's going on. And I mean, we keep having these government shutdowns. It seems like when I get news of this, I'm like, it's not all that surprising. It's like, oh yeah, this is happening again. So where does an independent fall into that?
Well, my vision for our country is one that has a vision. Any country, any great nation has a vision of where we're going. And that vision should not be changing every 4 years depending on who is in the position of president. We should have a vision for the people of our country that values all of us. And I believe that our government should be operating on ethos, which are things that we can all agree upon as we operate. And I learned that recently through the city of Westminster, Colorado, and I worked for them for some time. And they had these values that they governed by. So service, pride, innovation, respect, integrity, and teamwork. And that is how they hired folks, and that is how they govern their city.
Awesome.
And I believe that when we have a set of values that we can all agree upon and move forward, you make decisions that are built in that truth and that make sense. And it takes the whole split of parties out of the picture. It's no longer about the parties, about being right. It's about, is this serving our ethos? Is this serving the people of our nation, or is it not?
So it gives you a new lens as opposed to Republican, Democrat, or this black and white. It gives a different lens to look at.
Absolutely.
Which is a super powerful, way of framing and making decisions.
Yeah. So coming back to the shutdown, in my eyes, it is a lack of leadership or a lack of vision in our leadership. We should not be having, 20 different leaders here spouting out things in different directions and not even addressing the people of this nation.
Yeah.
Our leadership should be one-pointed in their focus to serve the people of this country, and they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So I do a lot of work myself on leadership, since you just spoke on leadership, and I shared a quote from your website on my social media, my Facebook page earlier today. And it was like, speaking of the leadership that you're desiring to bring. And I really believe firmly in politics and outside of politics, we need a new form of leadership. And the way you described kind of your form of leadership like that was like, yes, I was like, this is, I don't know if you know the quote or want to speak to, I don't know, it's something about like, probably what we're talking about, right? Like kind of how you're sharing that Westminster, Colorado, governs looking at integrity, looking at the ethics, and I think that that's what you shared of, this is not your words, but even just a wider, in my eyes, I guess this would be my paraphrasing and my understanding of what you shared, but just it seems like a larger periphery of leadership. So I talk a lot about embodied leadership. What does it mean to be an embodied leader? And I find when we can connect with our bodies, when we have more space within our bodies, it allows more space for opposing viewpoints to be heard and less need to be that rigid reactive mode. And obviously your languaging was different, but it felt in alignment with that, which really inspires me and lights me up of like, yes.
So, and I would consider that conscious leadership, in that we are able to step beyond just what Crystal needs, just what Emily needs, and be able to see the needs of others. And in able to be that embodied leadership, we have to be able to understand our personal needs first, and then expand beyond that. So my leadership has really been born out of learning about Crystal. Who am I? Who am I authentically? And I'll say that that really took a lot of time to understand. So in the military, I had sexual assault and a lot of trauma that came with it. And I left the military with PTSD. And in that, it took several years for me to uncover who Crystal was. Especially for women, we are covered up, we are watered down, and we are told who we should be, what we should look like, how we should think. And so as a young woman coming out of the military, having this growth mindset, understanding that where I was as PTSD wasn't who I am, I was ready to discover that, and I did everything that I needed to do in order to find that growth. So my leadership comes from addressing Crystal within, finding that authenticity, that leadership of courage, strength, compassion, and love for all of my family members in the U.S., and then stepping forward to lead from the front. And that is that embodied.
And that's a huge piece, is finding that internal self, who you are, and doing that internal work first before then stepping out and being able to address the external world. Because I think our culture, our world is so set up on external validation, or needing to have this job, this salary, this relationship, these X, Y, and Z. And what is it really people are wanting? Why do they want those things? And it usually has to do with they want to feel a certain way. So what is that internal state of feeling? And I find when we can really do that work, and it's a continual. It's not just like, oh, I did my work in a month and now I can.
Coming.
Yeah, it's ongoing. But really checking in internally and checking in with that space allows the capacity to be a clear leader, to be a clear mirror reflection, so that we're not so mirrored and fogged up.
Yeah, and personally, it's so important because if I'm looking to the rest of the Americans to tell me what it looks like to be a great leader, I might be Trump, to be quite honest with you, because that is that external validation, right? And so certainly as a woman who has no political background stepping forward to lead our country, I have to have a very strong internal locus of control, knowing exactly who I am and the power that I hold. And even as I step out into the public, those people who doubt who I am, they will continue to come forward. And so it is my responsibility as a leader to know the power I hold and to really know that my leadership is authentic and it is heart-based and intelligent in that leadership.
And you so own that conviction. When I first met Crystal, we were introduced by a mutual acquaintance, and we went for a little hike, and I was thinking, well, who is this gal who's gonna run for president? I was like, I'm intrigued, but like, and I was so inspired and could really feel the truth of it because Crystal's completely aligned in her message, like completely aligned in her conviction. I mean, I could see it all through her body, and that is inspiring, and that is also completely necessary because one, for the people who doubt you or are going to be vicious or hateful, but then also, I keep going back to this example just because it's what's happening, a government shutdown, when you have both parties and people getting mad or whatever, how can you continue to stand in your truth, continue to stand and be that clear light?
Yes. And I would also add that as a visionary, as a leader who sees something greater for our country, it takes that ability to just turn off the rest of the noise and know exactly who I am, why I'm doing this, and stick to the vision. I think that that's something that so many of us get lost in this external control or external validation, is that we see what others are doing and then we take our eyes and our attention there, and then we see a squirrel, right? Squirrel. And so we're always looking around us. And any leader that is worthy of leading our country has to be internally controlled, to be able to ignore the noise, be able to hear what the people are needing, see what the people are needing, and be able to communicate in a way that everyone is able to hear and understand.
Yeah, awesome. So do you have any, like, for anyone who's watching this, suggestions, takeaway tips? Because I think it's really important that we all own our role as leaders. So one, if you want to say something more about your candidacy, and then also, how could, if somebody's watching this, what's a real way, if, say they're a stay-at-home mom or a volunteer or just a working professional, what's something that they can do to really own their role as a leader a little bit more? Because I think that's really powerful.
Absolutely. And I'll come back to the example I used on our hike. I was sharing with Emily that as women, it is the most important work that we can do as women is to work on ourselves. When, as women, we birth babies, right? We bring children into this world. And so from the moment that baby is in the womb growing, it feels our energy. It can feel if we're scared and constricted. It can feel when we're abundant and enjoy, right? So it takes on that energy. And the moment that baby comes into the world, they're looking up at us, at the women, their whole lives. Yes, some of them have men in their lives, but they are constantly coming to mom for food, for that nutrition, for a guide of which direction we need to go. So the very key for women to stand in our leadership is for us to do that internal work, to find that internal validation, to know who we are, the power that we hold. And we all hold different power in this world. Some of us are super compassionate and nurturing mothers. Others are like hard on the ground, let's go get it, let's lead the people. Some are teachers, not here to birth children, but to teach the children. And so the work as women is the most important. that we can find our power to let go of what we've been told we should look like or talk like or think like.
Yeah.
And what feels good for me? What feels authentic?
Totally. Yeah.
So that's what I would say is
I
the number
love
one.
that. And male or female, if you're watching this, but especially women, I think, and really owning and claiming what's true and feels good for you. And I think that's something before we got on this, I was going to ask Crystal what her stances were, her position was on different policies, and I'll let her talk a little bit about this, but the way that how about, maybe just share, because, and then I'll share what I was going to say on that. Like, what is your stance on, I just, like, you don't have to go in super long in depth, but, like, gun control, marriage equality, all of these X, Y, and Z, issues.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying that it's not an easy answer. I'm not trying to be put into a box so that you can say I'm pro this or anti this. I'm trying to open up conversations for us to really come back to humanity. Our politicians have been pushed into boxes, sometimes by us, sometimes by party, certainly by just current day situations. But it's so much more than that. So when we talk about gun control, we can't just say I'm for guns or I'm against guns. We have to understand what is the root cause for the issues that are happening with gun violence. Why is it that people are going into schools and shooting up schools? Why is it that children are committing suicide with guns, right? Why do we have these issues? And to me, it comes back to that humanity. We have neglected the humanity in our country and neglected to take care of the people through systems. So our government is responsible for education, for healthcare, for the military, for our economy. We are giving so much of our power and control to these systems, and they're corrupted. They're broken, and they are not supporting the people. So when I think about my stances, I look back to the root cause of issues. And to me, the root cause of gun issues comes to that mental health, that physical health, and that sense of community. Being divided. We can never hope for a country that doesn't have gun violence until we can find peace in communities and find some unity within our diversity. We are the most diverse country in this nation, and being that, it's going to take a lot of creativity and understanding to figure out ways that these systems can support us all.
And I so believe that. I have a little chuckle. I'm like, it's like the functional medicine of politics.
Yes.
Because functional medicine, there was looking for the root cause.
Yes.
Not to oversimplify. But
it is.
But I seen that too earlier when Crystal and I were kind of discussing this before going on in the interview. In my perspective, it also really just feels like a more feminine way of looking at policies, looking at decision making, because it's not so, I think a part of the issue with our current political system, it's so black and white, right, wrong, it's so linear, and I think allowing more of a space for that feminine, non-linear fluidity, if you will, if we can talk about that in a political way, is, I really believe, essential for the healing there. So I really, appreciate and respect that.
Absolutely.
What's that?
Do you want me to expand on that, or how are you feeling?
Go ahead if you, and then we'll,
I could talk for hours, I don't know.
We're probably going to tune off pretty soon.
Okay.
If you have a thought on that, go ahead.
Well, exactly like you're saying, this, in our country we have been so much about the masculine and pushing through things and just making quick split decisions and forgetting again that humanity. And that is the power of the feminine, to remember our humanity, to use our intuition and our emotional intelligence, right? We have, not only have we ignored those, but we've also vilified that emotional intelligence and that intuition. And that is some of the greatest intelligence that all of us can tap into, but certainly that women embody very, very easily. And it's needed in our in our government right now, and I'm super excited about so many of the women leaders who are already stepping up, who have gotten elected in 2018, and who are standing against the norm of, black or white. They're already saying, no, this is not black or white. We need to talk about this.
Yeah, and opening up the space for discussion.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Awesome. Well, Crystal, how can people learn more about you? How can they follow along? How can they support you?
Yes.
Where can people look?
So you can head to my website, crystalbergfield.com.
Okay.
Crystal, OG style, like the crystals.
Yeah.
Bergfield is BERG, F as in Fox, IELD.
Awesome.
.com. So you can head there.
And I'll have links. There's a link under this video
Thank
in the email. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And then on social media, I'm new to social media. I've been on the ground doing all the work, and I'm very much a person.
Mm-hmm.
So being on social media is something new to me. But I'm there, so I would love your support on social media. And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Crystal for POTUS.
Crystal for POTUS.
Yeah. That's
Cool.
me.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And I would invite you all, even if you're uncertain, to just get on Crystal's mailing list, which you can do from her website, crystalbergfield.com. You'll see a little pop-up, because I think that's a great way to continue to learn more about her work, and her mission, and stay informed. So I would highly encourage you just to, no matter where you are on the political spectrum or what you're thinking for this upcoming 2020 election, I would just invite you to do that, just to open up a new possibility.
And if I could add one more plug.
Yeah.
So my campaign is a grassroots campaign, and it's a values-based campaign. And in changing the conversation, I'm also changing the way we get to the White House. And so I'm hoping to use my favorite campaign from the 90s, reuse, reduce, recycle. And I've got a page on my website, Needs of the Campaign. And so I'm looking for interviews, I'm looking for people to donate in-kind donations, looking for people to volunteer. So trying to do things differently than just taking money. I'll take your money and I'll use it wisely, but I want to find ways for folks who really believe in what I'm doing, especially those who are being suppressed by these systems, who don't have the monetary support to support me. You can all do something to contribute to our country in a better way, and I hope that you'll choose my campaign to do so.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Crystal. Such an honor to have you here and get to learn more about you and more about your vision. And so thank you. I really appreciate it. And we'll see what's gonna happen. This is exciting. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks all for tuning in, and check out Crystal's webpage to learn more. And Happy New Year.
Happy 2019. Let's rise up.
Take care.